Agribusiness and Science Week platform is the place to be.
I stand again on existing protocols, ladies and gentlemen. I am going to do a bit of surgery on my presentation here, and I have to do it as it evolves. Ladies and gentlemen, nothing has given me greater pleasure than a day like this. And what it simply means for me is that ultimately I have come full circle, outgoing Executive Director of FARA. This great house gave me the marching orders at the Accra International Conference Center on the 20th of July, 2013. And I am today standing again with a deep sense of appreciation for the opportunity that I was given and to recount my chances, changes, challenges, and costs. The fence never stands alone. And I had, since I was appointed, I had waited for the day that I was going to be inaugurated with a lot of trepidation and anxiety. But then the day came, and it was on the 20th of July, but it was not until the following Monday that I would sit on the chair that confirmed my endorsement earlier at the General Assembly the previous Saturday. Ladies and gentlemen, that was the summary. The end of the matter is that, very honestly, 10 years to this day, today could have been a mirage. And the truth is that I was consistently under check from day one. But I also did not lose sight, and neither did I lose faith, because I was guided by some simple philosophies. I also recognize the place of divine permission and grace in the lives and callings of humans, and I am obliged to give thanks and praise to God Almighty for granting me this honor at this time in my career. I understand that it is good enough to finish, but it is not enough to finish. You must finish strong. And I understand also that the closure is only for me a new beginning. Ladies and gentlemen, I reckon that in the beginning, when I gave my acceptance speech, there were 4 key elements that I honed my acceptance on. First was to lead the thinking in the review of the current strategies driving agriculture on the continent. The second was to place the National Systems of Innovation and Agricultural Technology Transfer Initiative at the heart of agricultural development and to strengthen our capacities. And today you've seen the first crop of people whose capacities have been strengthened, amongst others. And then to improve and strengthen the quality of agricultural statistics, and today we have what we call the knowledge management for agriculture, and to provide guidance to the efforts and process in the areas of trade and market access and agricultural products. And today we are talking CAPS, the big changers. I got into the job with all my energies and to do 3 things. First, to recalibrate the house. 2, to rebrand the house. And 3, to reposition the house for impact. I understood from the beginning that it was also time for Africa and Africans to take ownership of the intellectual discourse on the continent, away from the outside think tanks, and locate it as it should be in the heart of the African continent. This is what the African Agricultural Science Agenda that FARA spearheads is all about. And today, we're not talking about Dublin process, we're talking about Abidjan 1, Abidjan 2, that FARA was extremely instrumental in birthing. Thank you. Now, from the outset, looking out and having a panoramic view of my future in FARA, I understood also that if the past had failed us, the hopes and anticipations of the future, of the food insecure and the perpetually vulnerable people groups of the continent and the future need not repeat the past. There is a discernible wave of change across the continent, and wisdom demands, therefore, that we carefully exploit the opportunities converging at present for the benefit of Africa. I had shared another phrase, thank you very much, a phrase that has guided my thoughts to persistently make the future in the present. And I needed to start with the end in mind. Since 22nd of July, every single day at the helm of affairs of this wonderful institution was a struggle, including today. But the trick is this. When you see a swan sitting on a lake, it sits very quietly. You have to look what the feet are doing. There is always a front end and there is a back end. There is a saying in my language that says, there is no posture is suitable if you have burning coals on your palms. There has been no days off, no weekend, no leave. It was a struggle for survival, a struggle to keep the house afloat. That was my daily chore, 8 to 5 or 8 to 24, 24/7. And it was the dynamic momentum of ensuring that the house does not go under, despite all the mighty forces of financial gravity and every other form of intimidating forces that would rather see FARA and the ED go down at some point. It was an existential threat that I lived with every single day. My integrity and reputation drove me beyond my limits, and I had become a victim of my own success. But I was burning my candle at both ends with strong gales that will not relent until the light goes out. But I had, by mercies, pulled through, but not without some scars left by debilitating health challenge, especially with COVID. And I express profound gratitude because today my staff could have been standing 1 minute silence. I want to thank you, FARA staff, for being there for me. Thank you. It's not unusual to express sentiments like this, but those were very difficult days, but my staff was there. And thank you very much for being there for me. I thought I wouldn't do this. Thank you. So it's been a golden decade for me. And I understand also that the tree bends as the wind blows. It was necessary for us to tweak Malabo when we started. It was very difficult, but we managed. But we were grossly reconditioned by resource constraint. It was akin to the suicidal scenario of sending an infantry to war, to the war front with tanks and armored cars with no bullets. Yet, you must deliver the spoils. It takes the tenacity of a mother who must spread one chicken over 3 days in a household of 10, and everyone remains happy eating something. Sometimes the mothers had no food, let alone meat, but no one sees that. One other constraint that we saw was the need to address the capacity gaps that existed in our pedagogic system, and I already alluded to that. And I also would like to say this, that in matters of leadership, I quickly learned that when you stand to be counted, you will be judged by what you did not do, not by what you did. So remember that, Agri, this is now for you. Remember that if it is sweet, you are expected to share. When it is bitter, you are expected to bear. There was a lot of discussion around focus, FARA. But you will hear a lot more of that. But I dare say that there is a proverb in Wolof. You can ask Dr. Fall to say it in Wolof, I don't know. But it says, an empty bag cannot stand. So many a time we were asked to ensure that we keep focus on what FARA should be doing. We love to do that. But when you are focusing, when you're asked to focus and there is no money, no state puts anything, nobody, all the money you have to raise, you have to shout, you have to do everything to get money, it was very difficult. Okay. There must be a time when we must call for a baraza. It is a home gathering, the marketplace where we need to rediscuss the plights and the modus operandi of the African Agricultural Research for Development conundrum. We must find a way of getting around it. We always seem to have a similitude of success, but we have not deployed the force that births success at the back end. We need to move beyond that. The Bini adage says that you cannot spank a baby and forbid the baby from crying at the same time. But why do we give our backs to be spanked? Why is Africa outsourcing its own responsibilities towards the application of science in its agriculture? And you expect an institution like FARA to thrive and also survive. In the early years, the secretariat front was difficult. I must confess I had been blessed with a great cohort of staff, great complement of co-workers. They will stop at nothing to ensure that every Monday, the mandate of the House neither failed nor faltered. I would not manage without them. And please forgive me, staff, if I have driven you nuts. You can only kick your bedmates at night. That's the price of proximity. When I took over, and I'm glad that Dr. Charity Kruger is here today, please thank Dr. Kruger. Please give her an applause. Take a seat, ma'am. We had a very difficult scenario at hand. This honeymoon was very short, and we had to get to work very quickly. I've been privileged to serve through 3 board leaderships, and Dr. Charity Kruger was my first board chair. I'm delighted today that even though you are present in the FARA Assembly at the same event in Accra 2013, Dr. Kruger is here with us today to share in this momentous occasion when we close this tenure of Yemi Akinbamijo again in Durban. We had some headwinds, but let me leave those ones out. There are better things to talk about. So in the latter years, the second term was very eventful. As I said, burning the candle at both ends, the lamentation of the worsening capacity to generate science calls for reworking the narrative bottom up, or we may be putting the lipstick on the pig. I understand 4 things. 1, leadership is a tricky business. It is slippery, a slippery terrain, definitely not for the faint-hearted. It is what I describe as the filtered life that must have no dregs. And I learned how not to run a continental organization. FARA, indeed, for me, was a risky experiment, but I'm glad that we pulled through. I will quickly run through a poem that I wrote now for my dear brother, Agri. I love poems. What I call the Spate of Thrones. But then they die alone. Empires rise and fall, they fail the throne. Today, you are a fantasia. Tomorrow, the bubble will be blown. The burden, yes, the burden of the lone. Glasshouse dwellers throw no stone. You take the crown, you will live alone. The glitz, the frills will come in their drones. You wish to live, you first, then your clone. But break the silence and hear the moan. 119 months have elapsed since I first took this position, and now it's your day one, Agre. It's a daunting challenge, and you signed the contract alone. But it will always be unclear how the future would unfold. But I can say to you, if it had not been the Lord, we would have been consumed. So you'll be in good hands. And I can also say to you that this is about what they say. It is not always what was said, as I was otherwise led. It was a game of death. Dog eat dog, spare one, fell the log. Driven by the muscular that came calling for the jugular. Callers by night, they took my bed. A crack in my mind, I shook my head. Swim, swim, but look at the feet. I have lead. The head start was uneven. The task must be manually driven. In the era of sleek technology, it's only to us another tautology. So my brother Agre, I ask of you, watch out, and you're going to be just fine. I also would like to close by giving these one or two statements. That indeed the cock sweats, but it is concealed by the feathers. It is not everything that the hunter sees in the forest that is reported at home. So those are a lot of words put in some succinct ways, and I hope that you'll be able to decode them at some point. So let me close because of time. Otherwise, I will be pushed out of here. Now, let me be a bit democratic. Let me recall a very important, it was like setting sail all by myself on the very treacherous and tempestuous condition. Okay. A Thai proverb that I learned says, if you are going to the jungle, do not leave the knife at home. I am very privileged and blessed to have a good cohort of staff, and at the home front, I'm blessed with a great family. I have said a lot about my wife, but women in the house, should I still talk about my wife or not? I don't want men to answer that. So, I make bold to say that I wouldn't be here today without the unceasing prayers and agonies she bore. She walked my back end. She stained her pillows with her tears for me to endure through the years. I had many reasons to have fallen, but one reason I stand today, and I emphasize this, one reason I stand today is because she stayed on her knees. Thank you, Jumoke. She stretched her hands to heaven on my behalf, and she stood alone by the night watch so that I can stand alone during my day, including now. So, Arewa, today you will now have another tick on your earthly mandate. For this, I'll pause for you to celebrate the heart of my home and the home of my heart. She is Arewa, my God-given shock absorber. Gentlemen, never leave heaven without one of these women. All other graces, thank you. All other graces that were encountered are no longer unconnected to the fact that someone kept her knees bent because of me. And this is the start of my odyssey, the support of the journey that before it ever began, she prayed me through before it ever began so that I may not be preyed upon. On this day, on this case, I now rest my oars. I thank you all.
Can we appreciate him? Hold on a bit. Yeah. Thank you so very much for this warm appreciation.